Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. It's been a little while, but please like and subscribe. As always, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, and anything in between. I greatly appreciate it. Let's get those numbers moving. Share the content out. I appreciate it. There are a couple fairly significant topics that have kind of come up over the last week or so. I haven't really touched on a lot. I've decided to kind of leave certain things alone and just sort of see how the land lays, but why not better than now to sort of, address a couple things. So without further ado, let's talk about some of the stuff that's happened. Okay, so as of recent, I think it was yesterday, Eddie Hearn has revealed that Deontay Wilder and Shelly Finkel, or more, I guess Shelly Finkel in particular, has actually responded to an email that he sent in August with regards to talks about a potential fight somewhere in the future. I think he said it was literally a one-line response, just saying, let us know what kind of money we're talking about or something along those lines. So they've opened up a communication of dialogue. Now look, with regards to that, I mean, it's no surprise if the pay-per-view numbers for the Helenius fight is anything to go by. From all reports, it says it's between 75 and 77,000 pay-per-views in the US. Now, don't know how much Deontay Wilder got paid, don't know how much Robert Helenius got paid, but I would have to assume that it probably made a loss. Now, I think in one respect, it's kind of a good thing, because look, ultimately no one really wants to pay additional costs for any service when you already have an exorbitant amount of money to pay in the first place. But with regards to that, I mean, I think within boxing it kind of shows that outside of the two major pay-per-view draws in Anthony Joshua and Canelo Alvarez, who have done it consistently back to back to back to back, unless you are in the biggest of big fights, you can't fleece the public anymore. And I think these are the kind of actions that are showing that. So 77,000 buys when the last pay-per-view sold around 600,000 with Tyson Fury goes to show that the fans are only going to pay now for the best matchups, or at least the ones that look the most competitive, whether they got titles on the line or not. So I'm actually all for this trend of very, very low performing pay-per-view buys. Like, ultimately, unless you're in a top-notch fight, don't try and charge me money to watch you, because realistically I've got the money to watch, but I ain't watching. I didn't purchase that pay-per-view on Fight TV. I refused. I'm like, it's Robert Helenius. Like, why would I do that? Which leads me on nicely to the Tyson Fury pay-per-view, which is, look, I don't know how well that's going to do, if I'm totally honest. They might sell out the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I'm not saying that they won't. 50,000 tickets plus have been sold at the minute. How many of those are resellers? No idea. But I don't think that pay-per-view is going to do extremely well. And again, if it doesn't, to me, that's a good thing, because then it means that the only fights people are going to be watching on pay-per-view are the fights that matter. So if it doesn't matter, take a smaller cut of the pie, put it on regular TV to keep your profile high. Now, the rhyme wasn't intentional, but hey, it is what it is. We accept it. We accept all forms of sport on this channel. But yeah, look, realistically, I'm just kicking it. I'm being real honest right now. Like, if it's not a real high level fight, a very intriguing fight, a fight where there's, it's either 50-50, 60-40, or there's due risk on either side, or it's like for all the marbles, don't be trying to charge people money just to see you fight. So especially, look, Tyson trying to fight Derek Chisora, he's fought twice already, beat twice already, stopped in his last fight 8 years ago. He's gotten better. Chisora's gotten older. It's not really, no one's looking at it as being competitive. But I'm all for pay-per-views not doing well at this stage, unless they're the creme de la creme. Because if those ones, if we all buy those, it gives the onus on the the fighters and the boxers to only deliver the best fights, and that's the ones that we're going to pay for. So yeah, long may it continue. In terms of Deontay and Shelley, I mean, look, they look like they're tied into the Andy Ruiz thing, but we'll see how that really works out in the future. Now, speaking of Tyson Fury, he came under a little bit of criticism, shall we say, earlier on this week from True Geordie, just with regards to the Derek Chisora fight and the fact that it's on pay-per-view, because I feel as if the fight itself with Derek wouldn't be as big of an issue to the public, the boxing public especially, if he was just fighting Derek Chisora, because it's been billed as this keep busy fight before the Usyk fight that takes place. Now look, I don't really like that narrative, because the Usyk fight isn't signed. There's no paperwork that said that fight is guaranteed to be next. It's just, oh, that's the fight, that's gonna be the next fight. But there's no paperwork there. There's nothing saying, you get past this one's here, signed, delivered, whatever. It's just, oh, it is the next one. Now, Tyson Fury, who we all know is a habitual flip-flopper, yim-yammer every day. It's one thing, then it's another, switch hitter in the ring and outside of the ring. You don't know if he's really going to take that. I mean, the last thing he said about that fight is he's not doing that fight for anything less than $500 million. So how do we know that's going to be the next one? But ultimately, you have that, and then you have Derek Chisora as this quote-unquote keep busy fight. But why are you charging people for a keep busy fight? That should just be on regular BT. If the whole thing is, well, we're not sure if you'll ever get to see Tyson Fury fight in the UK again, then let everyone see him fight. So that way, when he does go abroad and fights again, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, or Dubai, or any of those other places, if he can get back into the US or Canada or whatever, fight over there, maybe people will buy the pay-per-view more, because he gave you a leaving present. You got to watch his keep busy fight for free en route to this quote-unquote undisputed fight with Usyk. But no, they're going to probably charge you what, £25, $26.95, $27.95 to watch a trilogy fight that absolutely no one wants to see, no one believes is going to be any real stakes or any competition. It's, yeah, so True Geordie ultimately was like, well, why would you do this to people who, in an economic downturn, in a crisis, you're gonna fight someone that you've comprehensively beat twice already, and then you're gonna charge your fans to do it as well. Don't you think you should be fighting someone, whether they're a better opponent than Chisora, someone that's fresh, someone you haven't fought before, where there is some intrigue? Tyson didn't like those questions, supposedly, and yeah, he reacted in a very, what would we say, unprofessional way. Now, it's funny because look, Tyson Fury can quote unquote get away with that type of response and outburst and level of disrespect that he shows, but let that be someone else and all of a sudden there's a it was shameful that they done that. It was like, that was totally unprofessional, it's uncalled for, there's no room for that in the sport, blah blah blah. But when it comes to Tyson Fury, it's fine. Now look, supposedly there is some issues between Geordie and Fury in terms of Geordie has criticized Tommy Fury quite a bit and apparently criticized John Fury as well, so maybe some of that contributed to it. But it's just funny how it's always this one rule for Tyson and then another rule for everyone else, and that really does grate on me and get on my nerves quite a bit. So even though I'm sure True Geordie was probably just trying to get the views up and maybe say some things he knew would either get a reaction or get some good traction on YouTube and Twitter, I respect the questions he asked. None of them were rude, none of them were ambush journalism. None of them were even out of pocket, except for maybe talking about the YouTuber stuff and the Conor Ben stuff, because I guess even though it does tie itself into Tyson Fury indirectly, that's not necessarily the route maybe you go down. But that being said, look, he done it. It was rather entertaining to watch. The outburst at the end, was it 100% serious? Was it not? Because Tyson had this half kind of smile on his face, but that's just him. We don't know when he's being serious and when he isn't. But yeah, there was a lot of there was a lot of language, there was a lot of insults, and it just seemed like, yeah, it wasn't really a cool move on his part. You've got people like Gareth A. Davis and Umar, whatever his surname is, like trying to defend him. I don't know, I think even Spencer Fearon half tried to, give him an out for that as well. I just want people to call it for what it is, because let that have been Anthony Joshua, let that have been Dillian White, even hell, the only other person I reckon could have got away with something like that is Derek Chisora, funnily enough. But let it have been anyone else and the narrative would have been so unprofessional, a disgrace to the sport, like we can't have that, we need to do better, blah blah. But when it's Tyson Fury, okay, it's cool. But yeah, look, he was right to get grilled, and the fact he doesn't like to have to answer for, these kind of things. I mean, yeah, look, ultimately wasn't he the same person that said that him and Anthony Joshua needs to be free for the British public? So why would you and Anthony Joshua, which is the biggest fight over here, be free, but you and Derek Chisora people got to pay for? I mean, look, the narrative just, it's all over the place at this point, and it's about time that the hypocrisy is called out on, en masse, on the big platforms, not just little channels like mine or Undefeated, or it needs to be challenged on these huge platforms for everyone to then have their opinion, and you have to answer these questions, because ultimately it's just long, it's tiring, it's boring. But I'm gonna leave that there, because like I said, that's a bit old now. That's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, and lastly, so Terence Crawford and Adrian Broner have signed to BLK is it BLK, is it Black Prime, whatever it is. They've signed to this anonymous platform. Terence Crawford is going to be fighting David Avanesian in his next fight, which obviously was announced last week. Errol Spence was not happy about this. The rumor is, well, it's not even a rumor. Everyone knows why he wasn't happy and why Al and everyone wasn't happy. It's because they wanted Terence Crawford to be in this big state of inactivity, coming off of 13, 14, 15 months of activity, to give you the best possible chance to be able to beat him. He was like, no, we ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna get a fight in to get that ring rust off, and then come next year we'll handle business. Now everyone's moaning that, well, he's fighting Avanesian next, when Floyd Mayweather told everyone that fight ain't happening until 2023, and he's not the only person who said that. I think Errol Spence either said it might be happening, or it looked to happen around January time as well. Well, Terence Crawford on Instagram Live yesterday, basically, he told the story as to why he's fighting David Avanesian on Black Prime. He says that he got a $50 million guarantee from a hedge fund consortium. I think we know who's fronting that, but that's not the story here. 25 mil a piece for both him and Spence. And Spence's response to that was, okay, well, what about the back end? Brother, you've never made 10 million. You've never made 12. You've never made 13. So why would you be worrying about back end money when you're getting $25 million guaranteed? That makes absolutely no sense. But then say, well, I basically got to talk to Al about that. I'm not sure, you got to find out from him. So Spence is like, okay, so Crawford's like, oh, ultimately, you're talking about man down promotions and rare, but you're not your own boss. Right now, I'm, promotionally free. I'm my own independent agency. I can go where I want, where the money is. But you've got handlers. You've got people that tell you when to fight. Now, we all knew this, but it's taken for someone else, and the actual boxer in the middle to finally tell people this is what's going on. Terence Crawford said he spoke to Al literally on the phone, and Al said he's not letting anyone else touch this fight. Okay, well, where's the 50 million for you to pull it up then? Because if you're telling everyone else that they're not allowed to have $50 million, then you must have to be able to compensate them, right? Because is that not the same thing that happened with Deontay Wilder with the $100 million DAZN offer? 120 million if you include the Dominic Brazil fight in there. But you've then had to compensate and put him on pay-per-view against Brazil and Fury and put him on a higher guarantee, but you didn't even match the offer that he got from DAZN. So you've literally got people bypassing dollars to pick up nickels, and it's mad that no one has questioned or pulled this up yet. I think what we really need to do is find these contracts and actually get these contracts, put forward within a court of law with this advisor role that Al Haymon seems to have, even though he also seems to be the head of like PBC Promotions. It just doesn't make any sense. But ultimately, it's farcical for anyone right now to try and tell me that Al Haymon is not the reason that these big fights between PBC, TMT Promotions fighters and other fighters don't happen. Because everyone else seems to be able to work together when it's for the good of the sport, but you're the one that seems to pull everything to the side, and you can't match with anyone else. Like, that's crazy. But that live was real interesting. But Terence said, you know what? Ultimately, the lines of communication ain't dead. I'm gonna get this fight in, shake that off, because Avanesian's a dangerous opponent, and I'll come back to him next year. As soon as he's ready, like, we can get it cracking. And ultimately, look, I've always said Terence Crawford beats the brakes off of Errol Spence. I don't even think it will be that competitive. And if it's to be believed now, Spence he's gonna circle around to Keith Thurman, who's just automatically been inserted as the WBC mandatory, bearing in mind the IBF mandatory still ain't been satisfied for over 4 years, and the WBA should actually be after that, because there ain't been a mandatory for that one either. The WBC, technically, Danny Garcia was installed as a WBC mandatory after the Sean Porter fight. So he's already satisfied that. So why are you satisfying that again when IBF is there? What, is it because Boots is the mandatory? Is that why? Who knows? But look, I'm happy about, the live yesterday. It answered a lot of questions. It put a lot of things in perspective. And right now, it's all about Errol Spence or Al Haymon, or one of those two. No one else. I don't want to hear from Steven Espinoza. Don't want to hear from Leonard Ellaby. Don't want to hear from Floyd. One of those two needs to come out and give their own version of events of what's happened, because ultimately you've got to answer the accusations and the story that's been put out there, because right now it's kind of damaging. And Terence Crawford is currently in a very, very, very big position of power in this instance. So you either got to come out there and get that information corrected if it needs to be corrected, or you got to come out there and find that 50 million that you're telling them that they can't take, or that you telling Spence he can't take, because Terence can get whatever money he wants. He's always been paid better, and had a higher guarantee than Errol Spence Jr., even though he claims to be the big fish. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. It's been a bit of a long one, but like I said, it's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, as I always say. And for right now, Hardcore Casual out.